The sound of Amanda's voice sliced through me like a blade. The best gift you could give us would be to disappear from our lives. She stood there, glowing in her wedding dress, but it wasn't the dress that was making her shine. It was her cruelty, her heartlessness. Michael, my son, stood beside her, nodding in agreement. His face, as cold as the champagne in his hand, never even turned to look at me. Before we dive deeper, I need you to like, share, and subscribe if you're following along with this story. Let me know where you're watching from. Your support means the world to me. Now, let me take you back to how everything went wrong, to the moment I realized I was no longer wanted in my own family. 3 years ago, I did something I thought was generous, something any mother would do for her son. I sold my home. The home that Robert, my late husband, and I had poured our hearts into for years. We had restored it with love, blood, sweat, and tears. But I gave it up. I handed over $87,000 of my life savings to Michael and Amanda. It was a down payment on their dream home, and I did it out of love. I did it so they could start their lives together. They promised me that I'd always have a place in their home, that I would always be part of their family. I believed them. A mother always believes. But now, this was what I got in return. The room froze. I could feel my heart drop. Michael, standing beside her, didn't even bother to defend me. Instead, he added, "You're ruining everything, Mom. It's supposed to be our special weekend." I had spent the entire morning arranging flowers. The afternoon was spent managing last-minute preparations. The evening listening to Amanda complain about every little thing. The weather, the caterer, the flowers I'd arranged just hours before. And yet I was ruining everything. I could feel the weight of everything I had done for them, everything I had sacrificed coming crashing down. And that's when it hit me, as sharp as the slap of Amanda's words. They didn't care. Not about me, not about what I had done for them, not about the years of sacrifice. I stood there, frozen, fighting to keep my voice steady. Where exactly am I supposed to go? I asked, calmly, too calmly. Amanda shrugged, uninterested. "A hotel, or maybe your sister's house," she said, dismissing me as if I were nothing. Michael then spoke up, his voice cold and detached. "Mom, this is our special weekend. We don't need you here ruining everything." Ruining everything. I had spent months planning this wedding. I had given them everything they wanted. And this was how I was treated. I stood there, trying to keep my composure, to keep the calm that had taken over. But inside, I was seething. I wasn't going to beg them. I wasn't going to beg for my place in their life anymore. "You're right," I said, my voice softer than it had ever been. I should go. Amanda blinked in surprise. She expected me to fight, to beg, to cry. But I didn't. Instead, I packed my things. Not in desperation, but in quiet resolve. I wasn't going to be their dorm at anymore, not this time. I went upstairs to the guest room, not my room. It had always been the guest room because guests eventually leave. But not today. As I folded my clothes, I could hear them downstairs, already planning how to take my room and turn it into something else. Amanda wanted a yoga studio. Michael thought it would be a good office space. Neither of them considered that maybe, just maybe, they should feel guilty for pushing me out of the house I had helped them buy. I paused in front of Robert's picture on the nightstand, and 43 years of marriage, and he had never once made me feel unwanted in my own home. I whispered to his image, "Don't worry, sweetheart, I'm not going down without a fight." And that's when I made the call. I dialed my lawyer, Margaret. Margaret had been handling all of Robert's affairs, and she had warned me about this exact scenario. Amanda's spending, Michael's disregard for boundaries. She had warned me that they would eventually turn on me. "Dorothy, it's Saturday evening. Is everything all right?" Margaret asked, clearly surprised by my urgency. I told her everything about the ultimatum Amanda had given me, the betrayal from Michael, the way they had treated my contribution to their lives. As if it was nothing. Margaret was silent for a moment, but I could hear her typing. "Dorothy," she said, "I've been worried about this for months, the way they've treated your investment as a gift, not a loan. Do you remember signing those additional documents I sent you?" My stomach twisted. What documents? The $87,000 wasn't a gift, Dorothy. It was a loan. You're a co-owner of that house. Co-owner? Margaret, please tell me you protected me somehow. My voice trembled with a mix of panic and disbelief. "I did, honey. Legally, you own 35% of that house. Amanda never signed the forms I sent. In the eyes of the law, you have a stake in that property." I sat in stunned silence as everything fell into place. Amanda's careless attitude, Michael's dismissal of my effort. It was all starting to make sense. And suddenly, I wasn't the powerless mother anymore. I wasn't just a victim of their cruelty. I had rights. I made my decision. I wasn't going to let them walk all over me anymore. I wasn't going to let them enjoy their new home, their new life, built on the foundation of my sacrifice. I was going to sell my 35% stake. I told Margaret to prepare a notice of intent to sell. In the meantime, I did something even more dramatic. I cancelled their $14,000 wedding reception. I called the Sunset Gardens Country Club, and I didn't even give them a chance to speak. "I'm cancelling everything," I said. The reception, the flowers, the band, it's all off. The shock in their voice was almost sweet. By Sunday morning, I was checked into the Hampton Inn, ordering room service, feeling something I hadn't felt in years: control. The phone calls from Amanda and Michael started. The wedding reception, their guests, the disaster they'd created. But I didn't answer, not until Amanda called again, and this time her voice was shrill and desperate. "What did you do? You cancelled everything. We have 200 guests coming." I didn't feel the guilt I thought I might feel. Instead, I felt empowered. "You can still get married. You just won't have a reception. I'm sure you'll figure it out." When Michael called, his voice was tight with panic. "Mom, please, can we talk about this? Let's work it out." I wasn't interested in working it out. "Where are you even staying?" he asked. That question, "Where are you staying?" brought home the reality of their betrayal. A few days later, Amanda called again, this time with genuine remorse in her voice. "I owe you an apology." Not the panicked one I gave in Margaret's office. For the first time, I felt like she was hearing me. "Amanda, what changed?" I asked. "What made you realize you were wrong?" I didn't understand until I had to work for money instead of just asking for it. I finally understood how hard it is to save, to budget, to be financially independent, she said, her voice filled with an emotion I hadn't heard from her before. That was the moment I knew that the lesson I'd hoped they'd learn, the lesson of responsibility, of living within your means, and of gratitude was finally starting to sink in. 6 months later, as I sat in my new apartment peaceful, content, and surrounded by the life I had built for myself, I realized that this was the life I had earned. Not one built on the sacrifices of others, but one where I was valued for me, not what I could provide. And that was the lesson I had wanted Michael and Amanda to learn, that sometimes the best gift you can give someone is to let them fall, to let them experience the consequences of their actions. And most importantly, to let them learn to stand on their own. This is the story of how I reclaimed my power, how I went from being the mother who was expected to give and give until there was nothing left to the woman who finally said no more. And now if you're watching this, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Let me know where you're watching from and share your own stories of standing up for yourself. You're not alone. Thank you for listening.